If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my.
I done been around the world. Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
All right, so I woke up with a blistering headache. I mean, some people would call that a hangover, right? But not here, just boot and rally. It's college football week 2. So truth be told, on the show last week, pretty much split out 50-50. I mean, Lance didn't really lock into anything, more leans than actual picks. This week, we're gonna hold them down and lock them into some of these games. The week started off great, right? Thursday night, 2-0, swept the board. Friday, I ended up going 1-1. Saturday wasn't even that bad. I started off really good on Saturday, and then just shit the board the rest of the week. Sunday, awful. Monday night, you ever go to a bar or a club and you always have that one big tough guy acting tough, ready to fight everybody until that one person just stands up and all of a sudden you see the guy take a step back. And about 5 seconds into it, he knows he made a mistake. That's me and every other Florida State backer on Monday night. About 5 seconds into that game, we all know we made a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's insane. Like going from Jordan Travis, a guy that had them at 12-0, and they were able to get through that ACC championship game last year with Tate Rodemaker. But the drop off to DJ Uiagalelei is just, Jay, it is. I mean, I haven't seen a drop off like this in a premier program, and I can't even remember the last time. I'm trying to rack my brain. For me, I had a great Friday night. I was 3-0. Saturday started out like a disaster, 1-5, won 5 straight to get over 500. And then we basically broke even on Saturday. I, unlike you, liked Lincoln Riley. I know you hate Lincoln Riley.
I'm
I backed SC, but I was.
But I think that was more. I will say this, and I'll say this quickly, and we'll get through these games quickly as well. I think that was more Brian Kelly than Lincoln Riley. I mean, just what is this, the 3rd straight year where he takes the opening kickoff, drives right down the field, only to end inside the 5, scoreless?
Yeah, look, I mean, LSU is tough to figure out. USC, even without Caleb Williams, is better just because DeAnton Lynn, what he's done with that defense. I mean, the defense, you saw they showed new body types. They decided to get bigger, more muscle. They've still got a lot of speed.
They look different. They look different, especially on the defensive front. And that receiving core is fucking legit.
Yeah, and so's Miller Moss. I mean, death taxes and Lincoln Riley quarterbacks. Say what you want.
Well, I'm going to say this about Moss, right? Moss held the ball a little bit too long for my liking. I actually like Nussmeier better and what he did and what he accomplished. He was decisive. He was in control. He was in command. I really like the way he changed body position and moved the pocket to open up throwing lanes. And for arm angles, he was able to change arm angles. You see that a lot with guys like Mahomes. I was more impressed with Nussmeier in the loss than I was with Moss in the win. His holding on to the ball a little bit too long caused a fumble that they ended up jumping on. There was also another fumble previous inside their own 10 that they also were able to jump on. So, and then the interception that wasn't an interception, wasn't an interception. So there was really potential 3 turnovers in that game from USC that could have all been tragic for the Trojans.
I will just say Moss made some incredible throws.
He did, but a lot of it had to do with receivers making plays that most kids in the country don't make, right?
Well, and you're right about Monday night, though. I mean, moving there, I had Florida State minus points. Once BC went up 14, I was all on BC. Hey, if you're not going to cover for me, I don't want you to win the game. And this Florida State product, boy, it is falling apart fast. I mean, you think about Mike Norvell, and what's interesting, Jay, is being here in Alabama and covering, both Alabama and Auburn, a lot of SEC. When Nick Saban abruptly announced he was retiring back in January, I was the guy flying the flag for Kalen DeBoer, but there were a lot of Alabama fans that really wanted Mike Norvell. Their belief was Kalen DeBoer doesn't know how to recruit to this area. Mike Norvell, look at what he's doing with Florida State. I wanted to see more. 10 wins in 22, 13-0 before they lost the bowl game to Georgia. But I wanted to see, with all of that attrition, how good they were going to be this year. And boy, for the Third time in 5 years, Mike Norvell is 0-2 at Florida State.
Well, that's what I mean. And just think about this. You go through the offseason with one real goal, right? And now that the playoffs has expanded to 12 teams, you think, well, surely Florida State has to grab one of those spots. You have an upperclassman, a guy with experience now in his third program with DJ. And all he's showing you is exactly what he showed at Clemson, which is why he had to leave the program in the first place. Oregon State was the rule. It wasn't it was the exception. It wasn't the rule. Clemson obviously is the rule for what DJ is or what he'll be at quarterback. Capable runner, big guy, big body guy, not a guy you want sitting in the pocket, dropped in the pocket. And these kids go through the entire offseason. Coaches go through the entire offseason. And now week 2, before 90% of the college teams have played their second game, their season's over.
Yeah.
Because for them to win the ACC, that's not happening. Not only do you lose 2 games off that right out the shoe, but you lose 2 conference games right out the shoe.
Yeah.
And you lose 2 conference games, which aren't even going to be the toughest games you play this season. And they're 2 teams like Boston College and Georgia Tech. I mean, can Georgia Tech be a dark horse ACC championship type team? Yeah, they could be. Will they be? Probably not. But listen, moving along, we got to get into some picks. It's college football week 2. We're going to get you locked up here for week 2, the schedule. We're going to go through the big games. It's going to be me, your favorite capper's favorite capper. I am J.A. Cavalier, joined here every week, of course, co-host my ride-along Lance Taylor. Also, joining us later in the show is going to be Coach Rick and the prop master, Luke Shuey. We're going to get into the first game, and the first game, much like last week, is going to be pretty much the biggest game on the schedule, and that's going to be Texas-Michigan. The Longhorns are laying 7. The total here is set at 43.5. Lance, I'm going to pass it to you on this one right off the bat, and then I'll give my take on it afterwards. Who do you like?
Well, one of the things I love to do Sunday mid-afternoon, Jay, is kind of guess what I think the number is going to be. And I thought this number would come in about Texas 5. Now, it opened at 3.5, and it quickly exploded. I mean, and you tell me to go from 3.5 to 7.5, where it's kind of settled right now, that is some massive money behind the Longhorns. 3.5, it looked too easy. 5.5, it looked too easy. Now it's 7.5. I don't know how much value you're getting with Texas. I think Texas is a much better team. They did everything they needed to do against Colorado State. Pass defense was incredible. All of this young receiver talent, all 4 touchdown catches were made by transfers. Ryan Wingo, the true freshman, led Texas 4 receptions, 70 yards. They hold a Colorado State team to 74-yard passing, a team that averaged over 307 yards passing per game last year. So, after 1 week, Texas checked all the boxes. And Michigan, I got to be honest with you, I thought Alex Orji would get the majority of the reps. Apparently, Orji just can't throw the football. Davis Warren gets the start. Maybe this is the ground grade we're talking about. From Jordan Travis to DJ, maybe that's what you get from J.J. McCarthy to Davis Warren. With all that said, defense still held Fresno State to 9 rushing yards. They had a pick 6. I love the under in this spot. I just don't think Texas, they had red zone problems last year. I could see Michigan's defense keep them around here and maybe even for the cover. But my play here is under the 42.5, and I really like that under.
Now, I'm not going to argue with the under because I could definitely see that happening, and only because it kind of locks in with what I like in this game, because I don't see Michigan scoring. I mean, the Longhorns did run it up last week. Michigan, not really so impressive, right? I did have Fresno State in that game, and I expected Fresno State to cover the spread. But Texas put up 555 yards of total offense last week. And I'm high on Colorado State. I'm actually bigger than most on Colorado State. They have a lot of talent in the school right now. But they beat that team 52-0. The Wolverines offense managed just 269 yards, 121 of those through the air. Texas definitely has the edge at quarterback. Michigan's not going to be able to keep up with this Texas offense. I really, truly don't think that Michigan puts up 10 or more in this game. I don't think you see double digits for Michigan. If you do, it might be a late score. So the truth of the matter, with the total sitting at 43.5, if you don't want to lay the 7.5 with Texas, and I don't have Texas at 7.5. I'm holding the 6.5 ticket, so I caught the best of the number. You might want to look at Michigan's team total under, which kind of is a play between what you have and what I have as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, if you wanted to play Texas and the under, it's a tough combination because, 42.5 is a low number. I just believe this Michigan defense, they've still got projected 3 first-round picks on that side of the ball. I think Wink Martindale's defense is going to be really good. I think it'll keep them in a lot of games. And look, if Sharon Moore is doing his job, Donovan Edwards will be much more in this game plan. They'll try to shorten the clock, and I think this thing does play under.
Moving on to Arkansas, the Razorbacks and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's laying 7.5. Total here is that 62.5. Now, this line doesn't make much sense to me. Both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. Oklahoma State gave up 20 points to South Dakota State last week. I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to lean Arkansas. I'll tell you why after Lance chimes in on this one.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I had South Dakota State, plus the 9.5 last week against Oklahoma State. And, the crazy thing about that, and the Jackrabbits did win the FCS last year. So that's a really good FCS team. With that said, they get beat 44-20. But the interesting thing is Oklahoma State only outgained South Dakota State by 6 yards. So when you really watch that game and how it played out, they just couldn't finish drives. Now, on the other side, Arkansas, we don't know a lot because they played Arkansas Pine Bluff. Awful team. They win 70-0, 687 total yards. And I got to give Arkansas's defense credit. They only gave up 130 total yards. Taylor Green is going to be, if Arkansas is going to get inside of the number, if they're going to play live dog and win this game outright, Taylor Green, the Boise State transfer, is going to have to be outstanding. He was great against Arkansas Pine Bluff, 16-23, 229, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, also 6 runs, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. I just think that Oklahoma State, I agree with you. I think this number is really inflated. If I played this, I think I would lay the 7.5. I think Oklahoma State, if Alan Bowman can stay healthy, I think Ollie Gordon has a big game against this Arkansas defense. I like Oklahoma State minus 7.5. Now, I'll say this, and you and I talked about it last week, Jay. It's a noon game. I played one noon game last week, and I lost. I am completely staying away when it comes to official picks. But, and this is probably good for the people watching and listening, because if I stay away from it and I like it, it usually hits.
No, now I, on the other hand, swept the noon games last weekend. But look, Oklahoma State gave up 388 yards last week. They lost the time of possession battle. That's to an FCS program. Now, I mentioned time of possession because that's how I think this plays out. Arkansas is going to run the ball. Jaquin Jackson averaged 12 yards per carry last week. Now, do I think he's going to average that? No. But he scored twice. This is a big number. Anything north of 7 or north of a touchdown, I'm not going to trust a Gundy Oklahoma State team. It's already come down a full point, and it did open up at 8.5. I do like the Piggies. I think that they cover this. And like I said, I only like this anything north of a touchdown. All right, move on. And this is going to be obviously the most exciting game of the week. We have Iowa State, Iowa. Lance, how much do you like the under in this one? I don't even think we need to mention the line, but the line is 2.5. Total here is at 35.5. Lance, are you on the under 35.5?
I don't know. I do think Tim Lester's offense is different for Iowa. It's funny. I saw some guys I work with tweeting out at halftime when Iowa was up 6-0 over Illinois State, and they're like, new coordinator, same Iowa. And then they bust out and they roll them in the second half. The Cy-Hawk Trophy, it has been dominated by Iowa. They've won 7 of the last 8. Kirk Ferentz back after the 1-game suspension. But Cade McNamara is going to be a different type of Iowa quarterback. With that said, Rocco Beck is really, really good for Iowa State. And Matt Campbell, had them ascending, had them playing for a Big 12 championship the last couple of years. They kind of, went south, but I think this is a pretty good Iowa State team. They got to run the ball better. Only 86 carries against North Dakota, under 4 yards per carry. But I kind of like Iowa State in this spot plus the 3. And here's what I would say. Iowa's win total was 9.5. And Jade, if you looked at that, they're going to be favored in probably 11 games this year. Not incredible teams will find a loss somewhere in this rivalry game. I like the Cyclones plus the 3.
Well, of course, Iowa State, Iowa offense, of course, is always optional. Hawkeyes did win this game in Des Moines last year, 20-13. Iowa, one of the weakest scoring teams in the FBS. They do have a new OC, as Lance alluded to. They did explode for 40 points last week. Everyone loves the under, so if you're backing the over or you love points, there is that. Personally, I can't get there. There's not enough data. 13 of the last 20 have gone under. Each of the last 5 games have gone under. It's hard to see either team reaching 17 points, but Lance likes Iowa State plus the points. I'm going to pretty much lock in with everybody else on the under, and we're going to move on here to South Carolina versus Kentucky, an SEC conference game, week 2. This game opened up at 49.5. It fell to 45. And now it resides at 42.5, so it's still going under. The under continues to take money. Big tickets on the under, and still, I like the under. Lance, what do you like?
So, clean read here, Jay. I think South Carolina might be the worst team in the SEC. Of the 16 teams, legitimately, after Vanderbilt was up 17-0, they blow the 17-point lead at home. Virginia Tech goes up 7 points. There was no way Vanderbilt was going to be able to come back and win that game. And Diego Pava, I mean, the kid from New Mexico State, and also Jerry Kill coming on and being an analyst. I thought that was the difference. With all that said, I think Vanderbilt's a better team than South Carolina. We'll see it later this year in Nashville. But Lenora Sellers is another downgraded quarterback. You go from Spencer Rattler, and 2 years ago, Spencer Rattler is a quarterback that heated it up, beat Tennessee, beat Clemson. They took a couple of steps back last year. This is the kind of game that can get South Carolina fans already talking about making a change. And next year, I believe Shane Beamer will be on a hot seat. But Lenora Sellers is not a guy that's going to get it done. They win 23-19 over Old Dominion, and Old Dominion turned it over 4 times. You know, Kentucky wins 31-0. Brock Vandergriff, transfers in from Georgia. This is where quarterbacks go to die. Doesn't matter if it's Will Levis. Doesn't matter, Will Levis coming from Penn State. Devin Leary coming from NC State. Now you got Vandergriff there. They're offensively just not going to be good. I like this under as well, but I think I'll take it even a step further. I don't know how South Carolina is going to score in this game. I don't know if you've got a team total there. I would think South Carolina's team total is around 13.5, 14.5. Something like that. I haven't seen it. But I like Kentucky. I like the under, and I really like whatever South Carolina's team total is under.
And Kentucky did shut out Southern Miss last week. I mean, allowing 131 total yards, right? Kentucky did have the 45th overall defense last year. And, yeah, I agree. South Carolina's offense is suspect. 17 points or less in 4 of their final 6 games. And that was with Spencer Rattler. Sellers only threw for $114 last week. 42 to me seems like a mountain. Are you going to get 30 plus from Kentucky? Probably not. Maybe a Gamecock team total, like you said. But I do like the under in this game. Lock it in for me, under 42.5. Lance, so are you locking in the under? You locking in Kentucky, or are you locking in the Gamecock team total under?
I am going to lock in the Gamecock total under.
All right, there you go. Lance is now official, and we have a special guest appearance here. It's not going to be a guest appearance as we move on. He's just going to be on every week. Tennessee, North Carolina State. The Vols are laying 7.5. Is it enough? And the total here is at 60.5. I'm going to bring in everybody's favorite old man, Coach Rick Bowe. What's up, old man?
Hey, what's happening? Like the hat?
Bergie, there you go. I love the hat. I actually saw it on the video earlier today. Lance, we got to get you locked and dialed into that YLose merch as well. I'll actually tell you how to get all that off the air. You just have to go on and use a code I have. Everyone's favorite old man. So Bergie told me that, Rick has like this cult following, right? And it's just a steady, consistent cult following every day, locked in with the coach. And Mike's like, yeah, because you just trust him to watch your kids. It's like, I ain't trusting that old motherfucker to watch my dog.
Hey, whatever you like.
Coach, I know you have a play on this game. Who is it you like?
I do. And I know you don't like trends, but I've got a good one. And I like coaches. Of course, I'm everybody's favorite coach, Josh Heupel, right? The guy's been a head coach at the FBS level for 6 years, spent 3 at UCF, last 3 at Tennessee. He's known for his up-tempo offense and something that's called the deep choice, which that's a podcast on its own. His teams score a ton of points, and they do so early. So in his 6 years as a head coach, his teams are actually 40, 17, and 2 against the first half spread. And then if you take it on the road, his team's on the road 22, 7, and 1 against the spread in the first half. NC State last week, I don't know if you saw it, but they played an FCS team called Western Carolina, wherever the heck that is. And they gave up 2 first half scores. I know they're better than that, but I like Tennessee and I like them early. So I'm going to take the Vols minus the 5.5 in the first half.
I can see Tennessee up early. I mean, Heupel is a guy that likes to just come out and pile it on early. And then where do the Vols usually sputter? They usually sputter down the stretch late in games, right? Lance, what do you like? What do you think about this game?
Look, Nico Hamaleeva, watching him last week, he's the real deal. And everybody.
Wait, before you go on further, I was waiting for someone to attempt saying his name because I didn't want to be the first guy on the show to butcher the name.
Yeah, I think most people are just calling it. We'll just roll with Nico. But 314 and 3 touchdowns in the first half. Look, and I understand it was Chattanooga, but on the other side, and I agree with Coach Rick, I think Josh Heupel, one of the best play-calling head coaches in all of football. I think this team will mirror more what we saw with Hendon Hooker in 2022 where they won 11 games. Should have beaten South Carolina, should have gone to a 14 playoff. Nico's that good, but on the other side, the defense didn't allow the Moccasins to cross midfield in the first half. So I thought the defense was equally as good. NC State, Coach Rick is right. They really struggled with Western Carolina. They actually trailed in the fourth quarter. Grayson McCall led them back. They end up winning the game by 17. Score was a little misleading. Big number here. I like the numbers that Coach Rick gave out. You know, fast start from Tennessee. I think the money's balanced on this game right now. I could even, you could talk me into the over 61.5 as well.
All right, so this is a pick that I locked in, but it's probably something that I'm going to lock in. Maybe I'll lock in like a Tennessee money line first half parlay with someone else because I have to imagine that's going to be north of 200. So I lock that in with somebody else, probably get positive results on that, a little plus sign in front of that dollar sign. You guys are right. Look, Josh Heupel, he's going to have the offense ready. 6 of the last 8 have gone over for Tennessee. The Wolfpack did put up 521 yards last week, 38 points. Correct. McCall had 318 passing, and the kid's just a gamer, right? I mean, Tennessee is going to be operating with speed, with pace. NC State probably going to be in a position to play catch-up for the entire game, and I do see this one going over the posted total. If I'm going to lean to a side, it's going to have to be the Vols in those gaudy creamsicle-colored uniforms. But I like it. Good stuff there from the coach, as always. I did make the mistake of going head-to-head with the coach on Sunday. All right, so I'm 0-1 against the coach this year. We'll see where we stand by the end of the season.
You're not the only one.
Bertie, get this old man out of here.
I'm out.
Coach, we'll see you here next week. Actually, I'll see you tomorrow for the NFL show.
Sounds good. See you then.
That's the guy. All right, that's Coach Rick. Lance, tell them where they can find everything for you and what you have going on here this week over at YLose.com.
Yeah, YLose.com /Lance. Jump on board with us. We are going to win for you again. I'm kind of with Jay. I think everybody kind of licking their wounds after Monday night. Outside of Monday night in Florida State, I felt really good about week 1, kind of feeling out all the new faces, all the transfers, where we are. Normally it takes a couple of weeks to break in. I feel like I know a lot after week 1. So jump on board. We've got daily packages, weekly, monthly, YLose.com /Lance. Try us out. We will win for you.
I'm going to say this. And, Lance, that I'm not a guy who really talks much about the transfer portal. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big believer of it. But I think that what's happening now is it's bleeding onto the overall product, right? Now, look, I'm going to catch a lot of slack for this, and that's fine, from those in Middle America, rightfully so. But Michigan felt like one of the worst championship squads I've ever seen. Now, look, I'm not taking anything away from Michigan in the season they had last year, right? you can only play and beat the teams on the schedule, the teams on the other side of the field. But if you put them up against any of the 5 previous national championship teams, they get blown out by 3-4 touchdowns. You know, what did they have to do? So they don't have to face probably, if not the best, maybe the second best team in college football last year. They escaped having to face Georgia. I guess I get it. Alabama beat Georgia, you know, in the SEC championship. But at the same time, again, a down year even for Alabama, right? I mean, Milroe's just really learning the system, didn't really catch up to midway through after they had already lost to Texas. And that loss actually cost Georgia a playoff spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't disagree, man. I think when you look at the last 5 champions, going back to maybe the back-to-back 2 best teams we've seen in the history of college football, 2019 LSU and then 2020 Alabama, who went against a 10-game SEC schedule, rode through it, whipped everybody by 14 plus. And, you know, you going back to last year, although Michigan, and look, this was like a perfect moment in time for this Michigan program. They built it up 3 consecutive college football playoffs. They got better each and every year. And then kind of a perfect storm with Jim Harbaugh in his last year with an elite quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. But let's not forget, you know, in the Rose Bowl in the semifinals, Alabama had ball in hand to win that game. So I do agree with you. I think Georgia was still the best team in college football last year, although they didn't make the college football playoff. And there has been better national champions, no doubt.
And you guys need to get my take on this whole transfer portal and actually what it's doing to the product. And I think it's going to take several years for it to correct. I mean, it's not crying over spilt milk. It's here. It's something that we're going to have to deal with. But I just think it's sending the wrong message. How if you don't go to one program, you don't excel. Hey, no problem. I'll just go somewhere else. And I'll be the big man on campus somewhere else. But I'm going to actually make a video on that longer format. Lance, you want to do it with me? That's fine. We'll just do a little extra something here in a week or two, because I have a whole take on the whole transfer portal and how it's watering down college football. But we're going to move on. Texas Tech, Wazoo, Washington State. Wazoo's laying 1.5. The total here is at 65.5, and for good reason. I do love the over in this game. The total opened up at 60.5. It's went up to 65.5. I don't think it's done moving. 5 points seems like a big jump, but after Tech's defense was exposed last week, maybe it's not. What do you say about this, Lance?
You know, I was out at SEC Media Days back in July in Dallas, and I was talking to a couple of national writers, and I was talking about the Big 12 specifically because I think it's going to be a fun year in the Big 12, and I personally believe there's 4 teams that can win the Big 12. Well, some of these guys were like, I think there's 7 or 8, and they went Texas Tech on this, and I think Joey McGuire is a good coach. But for them to have to hold off a 2-point attempt by Abilene Christian to win that game 52-51. Look, Bareen Morton was really good at quarterback, 378, 5 touchdowns, no pick. Taj Brooks is one of the best underrated running backs in football, 27 carries, 153 yards. But they gave up 615 yards. They had 11 penalties. Washington State on the other side, you're right. They had 637 total yards, but they gave up 449 to Portland. I don't know how these teams get stopped. This is 66.5 on a total is the new low 70s, probably the way possessions have been limited, the way the clock runs right now. I agree with you. I like this over, but if I played aside, I think Texas Tech does bounce back. I think Texas Tech will play well in this game.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I can't co-sign that. I can't bet a team or even give out a pick on a team that just gave up 51 points to Abilene Christian. And most didn't know that Abilene Christian has a football team.
No.
I mean, Mateer could have a massive day for the Cougs. He did pass for 352 and 5 touchdowns last week. I mean, so why not just take Wazoo? Well, it's actually quite simple. The reasoning is the over is just more attractive because nothing better for a handicapper than a team that plays true to form. And Texas Tech certainly does that. And Wazoo does as well, right? Teams that put up a lot of points, but teams that are also going to be exposed and give up a lot of points as well. You know, for as bad as Tech was defensively, they did score 50 last week. Brooks went for 152 yards. Morton tossed 5 touchdowns. This is the perfect recipe for an over. The Cougars have scored 40-plus points in 3 of their last 4 games. Take the light. I believe both of these teams are going to be able to light up the board. they could cover. They couldn't cover a couch defensively. So I'm going to take the over in this spot. I don't lean anyway as far as the game, but this is one of those games that, just a shootout back and forth.
I will co-sign the over with you. The over 66.5 is where I'm shopping it right now. If you want to lean on the side, I do lean the Red Raiders plus the 2.5, but I am officially going with the over 66.5.
All right, now we're moving on here, and we're going to bring in the newest member of the YLose family. That, of course, would be the prop master himself, Luke Shuey. Luke, welcome to the team, and welcome to the Player Performance College Football Edition.
Thank you guys for having me. I got to do a mic check. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine. I hear you fine. Lance, you hear him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're good, Luke.
Perfect. Let's rock and roll. We got a big-time prop in a game that you guys are looking at, and everyone's going to want to watch. Who doesn't want to watch the Colorado Buffs?
That's right. We have Nebraska, Colorado, the Cornhuskers at home laying over a touchdown. And this number does surprise me considering the revenge factor from last year and how this game played out on the field last year. Total set at 60.5. Who do you like in this game? We're going to start you off here, Luke. What's your prop, your top prop for the show here?
Yeah, top prop, guys. So last week we were on Shedeur Sanders. He's obviously hyped up as a top NFL recruit. We had him at over 304.5 passing yards. He tossed for 440 plus yards. Now that was going against NDSU. This week we're flipping it. We're not going on Colorado. We have freshman phenom, the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. Maybe not, but he sure dresses like it.
I did see that today.
The guy has a lot of hype, but he performed in week 1. So we're backing Dylan Raiola and his passing yard total in this game. So if you look at his stats last week, he went for 238 yards in the air, and it was against UTEP, but he only played for 2.5 quarters. And he had 2 big wideouts post 182 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Some really talented transfer receivers. And he's facing a Buffs passing defense that's just atrocious. If you look at them last year, they were 6th worst in FBS. They were ranked just near the bottom in every category. And they haven't got much better. At least it didn't appear so last week against Cam Miller and NDSU. So again, we are taking Dylan Raiola. I had his line earlier today. I was checking. It was like 235. I think last I saw it was 241.5 passing yards. So we're slamming the over there for everybody.
It seems like a good value, Luke. This Colorado defense has been trash. They've given up 26 plus in 8 of their last 10. I do think Colorado, just with the adjustments they made at halftime, I understand it was North Dakota State, but I did think the defense kind of settled in. My thing, and I love the prop there, but Jay, I think that I would have to play Colorado plus 7.5. And the only reason I say this, I think Nebraska wins the game. Nebraska had a dominant defense last year. They just didn't have Raiola at quarterback. Now you've got a legitimate quarterback where the moment's not going to be too big. I can't see Nebraska being 30 points better than they were last year. So they lose 36-14 in Boulder. Now I'm catching 7.5. I just feel like Colorado gets home. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think Nebraska's the better team. I think Colorado's going to have another kind of shit year, but they are a must-see, as Luke said. But I do like Colorado plus 7.5 here.
Yeah, actually, you pretty much stole exactly what I'm on. I do like Colorado plus the points, and I do think Nebraska actually gets its revenge and wins this one on the field. Raiola, he could be the real deal, right? Huskers defense is elite. Nebraska's secondary does match up well with Travis Hunter. But Colorado does need to still figure out that defense. So that's my only fear with this particular play, Colorado plus the 7.5. And the line it got that little half attached for a reason, right? The books know where people want to go with this. And they watched what we watched last week. They watched Nebraska beat up a bad UTEP team. They watched Colorado, struggle against a team that they should have beat by 3 touchdowns. So Colorado needs to shore up the defense. The Buffaloes have given up at least 26 points in 8 of their last 10 games. Still, I do think that they cover the spread, but I actually think that they're going to cover the spread late in the game. I think Nebraska gets out early. The defense leans on Colorado, forces a couple turnovers. Because let's be real, if you take Travis Hunter out of the game, I'm not sure where Sanders really is going to go with the ball. And you saw this last year early in the USC game with Colorado. When they're forced to run the ball, they're in fucking trouble. I mean, their offensive line isn't there. It's not going to be able to handle the bigs of Nebraska. And if these defensive backs, if the secondary can lock down Hunter and who else do you have? Right?
Jimmy Horton Jr. is pretty good. And I think Will Shepherd coming over from Vanderbilt is going to be pretty good. But to your point, I just don't think they can run the football. I mean, against an FCS, 23 carries, 59 rushing yards. The offensive line might be a little bit better, but it is going to have problems against Nebraska.
Yeah, but a little bit better is not saying a whole lot.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Hey, they gave up 54 sacks last year.
Correct. And I mean, USC was up in that game last year by like 3-4 touchdowns. I mean, Colorado came back late in the game and made a game of it and made it look, made the final score look closer than it really was. But USC start to finish in that first half. And I actually remember that game quite well because I had one of my larger plays of the season on the Trojans in the first half of that game. And I'm talking about that was a good, heavy, high 5-figure play for me. But I don't see Colorado taking lead or taking control of this game. I see this more as down, 15, 20 points late in the third, fourth quarter. And then maybe they come in with a little backdoor action. So I do think Colorado's able to cover this. But the more I'm talking about, the more I'm actually talking myself into a fucking Nebraska play here. So I'll probably stay off of it because I do think Nebraska wins the game. I mean, I have a small window really to cover this, and I do think that Nebraska is going to be able to lean on this team. And the more I think of this Colorado defense, I mean, they couldn't stop me, the two of you, and 8 other guys. So where are they getting stops?
That's why we go with Raiola. I mean. No, I think at home too. I mean, I would have been hesitant to bet on a freshman quarterback like this, but he was pretty poised week 1. Now you get home, you get the crowd rocking, huge game. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, and Raiola is a guy that grew up around football. Dominic, his father, played at Nebraska, played for Detroit. He refers to Matt Stafford as Uncle Matty. He used to throw the football on the sideline with him. So, the lights aren't going to be too big for this kid. I think he is, back to your point, Jay, I think he is the real deal. And I like where Luke's going here. I know Luke loved it last week. He already had, money was in the bank already with Shedeur. But how about a one-possession game and Pops is trying to get him 500 yards where they're going up top instead of just running clock. That was amazing. So that's Colorado.
That's the age that we're in, and this is even part of my watered-down version of college football these last couple of years, is that, guys like Deion Sanders and Jim Harbaugh even last year have become bigger than the game itself, right? Like, you didn't hear any storyline about any team, any player more than you heard about Deion Sanders and what he was doing over at Colorado. And it's not like it was warranted. Yeah, he turned it around. He's a good figure and a good face for the team, for the school, for the program. But they accomplished nothing when it's all said and done. And he and Harbaugh took over the spotlight of college football last season. And I'm not talking about Michigan. I'm talking about the coach and just the coach. It actually almost took away from what the Wolverines did on the fields. Nobody's chiming in on that? Nobody agrees, disagrees?
Hey,
I mean,
look,
I'd have to agree.
I like fucking sitting in silence.
I'd have to agree. I mean, since when does a coach get that much fame for a team that has a couple big early wins and then shits the bed the rest of the year? I mean,
that's what happened. Yeah. And I just don't see Deion in this for the long haul. We know Shedeur and Shiloh are on to the NFL after this year. And I just, I think Deion shuts it down. He's great for, I guess, the Colorado brand as far as bringing in eyeballs. But I just don't see this lasting longer than this season.
No, you know where he'll end up next, right?
Are you going Dallas?
No.
Oh,
good
luck.
So? I suppose.
Good luck with that. That will be a shit show.
But you know what? You could see it happening. And the one thing the guy's going to be able to do, he's going to recruit and he's going to get transfers.
Yeah, I don't think that we forget Mike Norvell when the flirtation with Alabama was out there. He signed a 10-year, $80 million deal. I don't know what the buyout is. I know Billy Napier across states buyout's $26 million. I would assume that Mike Norvell's is going to be in the neighborhood of that to $35 million. Florida State doesn't have a lot of money right now. You know, they're suing the ACC. They've got some issues. So it'll be a while if Deion is to take that job.
I know this isn't the NFL show, but Lance, I heard you say Dallas. Are you saying McCarthy out and Deion in?
I mean, would anything surprise you with Jerry and Stephen Jones? That's all I got to say. And I don't.
Yeah, actually, that would shock me because that's not a guy that they're going to be able to control.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, they're not controlling Sanders. All right, Luke, great having you on. I will see you tomorrow as we record the NFL show for this week. Keep those fucking props rolling. Luke has been on fire since joining the team. He is the sharpest shooter when it comes to props. You got Luke Shuey, the prop master. We're just going to keep that growing, keep that building. Luke, pleasure to have you on, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to NFL.
Yes, sir. All right, we're going to move on here to the next game, and that's going to be the last game, right? We have Boise State, Oregon. Oregon's laying 18.5. Totals at 61.5. Now, this game opened up at 20.5 and fell 2 points. I'm actually in lockstep with the move. Boise State is a team that's going to shock some teams here in 24. Give me the points and the Broncos. I'm going to take the dog plus the points. Lance, which way are you going?
I love Oregon in this spot. I really do. I think Oregon's still a really good team. I know last week was a little weird against Idaho. You know, it's hard to go 487 yards, 31 first downs, only one turnover. The time of possession was almost 40 minutes in favor of Oregon, and they only scored 24 points in that 10-point win over Idaho. They had 7 stalled drives. They gave up 3 sacks. There were multiple penalties on that offensive line. They got to clean that up. But on the other side, as good as Ashton Genty was for Boise State, going 267 and 6 touchdowns, Georgia Southern still had 27 first downs. They led 37-36 in the fourth quarter. I'm just not trusting this Boise defense, and I do trust Dan Lanning to find a way to slow down Genty. So this number is still massive, but if you're backing Oregon like me, you're getting value because if Oregon would have destroyed Idaho, this number is probably 24.5.
I think regardless of what happens last week, this number is exactly where it is. It just doesn't move the 2 points that it moved. Run game here is key for me, and it's key for Boise State. The difference is with any team that's going to be able to run the ball with any conviction, which I believe Boise State will be able to do, I think 20.5 is just too big of a number. 3 scores are just too big or too many to lay for really what's an unproven Oregon team offensively and defensively. 371 rushing yards a week ago. Boise State's going to have the best running back in the nation. Gentry did rush for 260, 6 scores, put up a 50 burger last week. That's just going to be bad news for this Oregon Duck team. No rhythm on offense, managed 24 points against Idaho, 7 stalled drives, fumble loss, 3 loss of downs. You gotta love the run game and the consistent run game of Boise State against an untested Oregon Duck squad. I love this spot. I mean, I'll definitely go head to head on this spot. I love Boise State right here. I just love the run game, and I believe the truer of any squad that's going to be on the field is going to not only be Boise State, but it's going to be that Boise State run game. Like, you know what you're going to get from it, and they're not going to abandon it. They're not going to abandon in the second quarter. They're not going to abandon in the third. They're not going to abandon in the fourth quarter. They're going to stay true to who they are because that's just what Boise State.
Yeah, I just feel like we have a massive advantage, Oregon, at quarterback and head coach. You've got a first-year coach in Spencer Danielson. You've got a redshirt freshman quarterback in the Maddox Madsen kid starting. Dylan Gabriel's got like 1,000 starts. Dan Lanning had him knocking on the door of the college football playoff last year. Autzen will be buzzing. I think it's a good spot for Oregon. So I love going head-to-head.
But my question to you is going to become, does Oregon doesn't have the same weapons that Oklahoma had? Like, you know, and we all know that Dylan Gabriel is only as good as what he's playing with.
Look, I think Bucky Irving is a big loss in the backfield, but Tez Johnson's back at receiver. You go out, you get Evan Stewart out of A&M in the transfer portal. I think they were really vanilla, and I think the offensive line had problems. I think Dan Lanning has peeled paint. He's on their asses. Boise State's getting hyped as that team that's going to be the Group 5 representative in the 12-team playoff. I don't think they will be that team. I think Boise has multiple losses this year. I think UNLV is a team to watch out for when we're talking about Group of 5. I just think it's a good spot for Oregon.
All right, so Lance and I head-to-head on this one. I like Boise State. I like the points. He is on the Ducks. He's laying the points. This has been week 2 college football. I am your favorite capper's favorite capper, J.A. Cavalier. He, of course, is Lance Taylor. You can catch everything he does at YLose.com/Lance. Also in the Free Pick Telegram channel. We're going to post that in the description below. Until next week, guys, remember that with your heads, not above them. We'll see you guys back here next week.
3-point spread winners posted daily on YLose.com. That's the letter Y, LOSE.com.